Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It's Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Would all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one revision to the agenda as distributed per staff request. We're going to be removing item F of new business, which is infrastructure technician position description update. That will come to us in a future meeting. Are there any other questions or comments on the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as corrected. Next up on our agenda, approval of the minutes. The minutes are printed on page 6 through 8 of the packet. I know Todd has one item that he'd like to comment about on the minutes, so I'll go to Todd before we take comments from others.
So, Madam Mayor and members, we don't need to change the minutes, but I wanted to follow up on the discussion that we had about vehicle exhaust system. And so the minutes reflect what was voted on and decided, and so that's accurate. But the reason we're trying to put this on the record is so that the future minutes can be corrected. And so just to be clear, that bid for the low bid was $120,355 for MagnaGrip. And so the decision is still the lowest bidder, but we had an error related to whether there was an electric discount of $12,000 or $10,000. It was actually $12,000, and so that's what makes it $120,355.
Any questions for Todd? So that's going to go into the official record minutes from this meeting. Are there any other questions or revisions to the minutes? Carrie?
Just one that I already submitted, so changing under the reports, changing Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Legislative Action Day to Greater Mankato Growth Action Day, Legislative Action Day.
Okay. Any other corrections or revisions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as revised?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved as revised. Next on the agenda, we have time for visitor comments on agenda items. Is there any member of the audience who'd like to address the council on any agenda item? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to general visitor comments.
No, sorry.
Yes. Moving on to general visitor comments, is there any member of the audience who'd like to address the council on any matter whatsoever? We do have somebody who'd like to address the council.
Sorry about that. Got a
Yes.
little excited.
If you want to introduce yourselves, we need your names and your addresses for the record.
Okay.
And then you'll have, pull up another chair. All right, thanks very much for coming tonight. If you could just introduce yourself and give your address.
I'm Nicholas Goebel, and then I live at Gustavus Adolphus College. Is that okay?
800 West College Avenue.
Correct.
All right.
I am Madeline Campbell. I am also a resident of 800 West College Avenue.
Could you speak up?
I'm Madeline Campbell, and I am also a resident of 800 West College Avenue.
Thank you.
I'm Jacob Foss, Jacob with a K. I'm also a resident of 800 West College Ave.
All right, thanks for introducing yourselves, and what would you like to speak with us today?
We would like to speak. We're part of a social innovation and entrepreneurship class, and we started this initiative in February to bring bees to Gustavus's campus near Big Hill Farm. We sent out a student survey, and we got 117 responses, including faculty and staff, and we garnered interest from about 60 students and faculty to be a part of this project. And with some of that feedback, we decided that Big Hill Farm on Gustavus campus was probably the best place that these bees could be, but we were doing some research and we saw that the city does not allow beekeeping in city limits. And so we are here to try to change that, or at least some sort of effort to do that. I don't know if you received this a few years ago when this discussion came up, because I think it was maybe in 2019 that you discussed this before. But this model beekeeping ordinance, I made a change. It seems, should I pass it around?
Yeah, if you have it electronically as well, you could email it to one of us to share with the group. But yeah, you could feel
Okay.
free to pass that around.
Yeah, I'll pass it around. I made one revision. It seems like the major concern is that you're worried about honeybees taking over the native species of bees in the area. And so after doing some research, a lot of those studies that have been done were done on big commercial beekeeping agricultural production instead of in small rural communities or urban communities. And so one of the proposed changes that I made is that limiting the beekeeping or the number of colonies you can have to 2, no matter how large your acreage is or how large your lot is. And we can maybe get that down to 1 or something like that. But yeah, just to limit the amount of honeybees in the area to make sure that they don't overrun the native species. Yeah. Any questions? Or I don't know.
Does anybody else, any of the rest of you have remarks that you'd like to share?
So going off that, we do care very deeply about the environment, and if one of the major concerns is with the issue of native bees, given the location we are looking to have it on, near the Big Hill Farm and also the Arboretum, there is enough of local species to allow them to coexist, we believe, but also if further research is necessary, we're willing to put in that effort.
Well, generally our process would be for the council to discuss this at a future meeting. As you mentioned, we have discussed bees in town before, but we have many new members of the council since that last conversation, and so we really are always grateful when residents come and speak with us. And so I don't know if anybody has any questions before I let you go. Brad?
Would you be looking at this to just be something that would be at Gustavus, or would you be looking at it as wanting to be a community-wide ordinance change? Basically, would it just be for bees at Gustavus? Or?
We are kind of looking into both options. Ideally, we would love to get the community involved and have it be like a Gustavus and St. Peter community experience together. But I don't know. It's kind of up to you at this point.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, is this our copy to keep?
Yeah, you can have
All
that
right.
copy. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well,
Yeah.
thanks very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
To get into the copy electronically, obviously I just got this in my hands.
Yeah.
Process it
exactly.
with its value.
Yeah,
Aaron.
it doesn't have my change on it, but
So
yeah,
can you make that change?
Yeah, I can
And
make
you
that
just
change
got it
and
to
email
city
that.
administrator, Practi, or any
Mhm.
one of us, we can get it dispersed.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, if you make the change and just call out what the change is when you send it, that'd be great.
In the
Okay.
email, you can, in the body of the email, you
Okay.
can put the change. If this is already a complete document, is this
Mhm.
from a city in particular?
It's from Minnesota Beekeepers Association.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I know you will safeguard this.
Pass it. No. Mayor, no. Oh.
There we go.
Thanks. All right. We are going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda unless there are any other members of the audience. Hearing none. The consent agenda begins with a memo on page 9 and concludes with a resolution on page 24 of the packet. The consent agenda includes the following renewal license applications: tree worker license for Mankato Landshapes and Woodfellas. Both of those licenses would be May 8th, 2023 through April 30th, 2024. Temporary gambling licenses for Ducks Unlimited Lake Region, Chapter 50, and St. Peter Ambassadors, address and date included in the packet. A tobacco license, a one-day only license to Smolder Cigar Emporium, Again, the address and date is included in the packet. The following seasonal and/or intern appointments, the names, positions, and hourly wages are listed in the packet. I'll read the names: Dale Thorson, Al Erickson, Matthew Hertling, Sarah Coe, McKenna Krengle, Malcolm McHugh, and Levi Weiser. The following non-seasonal employee appointments, approved at wages and positions shown in the packet: Teresa Somm and Scott Kelly. The following equipment for the city, for which the city no longer has a need, is hereby declared as surplus, and staff is directed to dispose of items as directed by city code. That is a 2008 Ford Econoline E250 cargo van unit number 708, and the schedule of disbursements for April 20th, 2023 through May 3rd, 2023. Is there any discussion of any consent agenda items? Any questions? Hearing none, the resolution before us is on page 24 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Knopf.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross.
Aye.
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 Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bravo.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. We have no items of unfinished business before us tonight, so we will move on to our first item of new business, which is the adoption of a resolution naming Hallett's Park and combining with Hallett Nature Conservancy Area, and Pete is here to talk to us about that.
Madam Mayor and City Council, as you're aware, the Capitol Lofts are under construction right now, and part of that process is taking approximately 0.9 acres of the northern area of that development and turning it into parkland. We have met with the Parks Board and discussed the process going forward. We are in the process also of laying out playground area, parking area, shelter area, trail expansion, and with that, we want to combine the two processes going forward. And the Parks Board selected Hallett's Park as a recommendation for approval. You can see the three other names that they picked in there, and after very little debate, they came to a conclusion they'd like to name it Hallett's Park, and that is what we're bringing forward.
Well, I have a question, but
Sure.
let's jump in and let others ask their questions first if anybody has a question or a comment. So I'm curious if there was any discussion. Before the meeting, I looked at the list of parks in St. Peter, and we have Gorman Park, Johnson Park, Galt Park, on and on, many parks named after individuals or families, but none of them are in the possessive. So I was wondering if the group had discussed the difference between Hallett's and Hallett.
We did not.
Yeah.
I think I can shed a little bit of light on that. The discussion specifically of Hallett's or Hallett did not specifically came up. The biggest thing that we looked at with the name was we knew it was going to get called Hallett's by most people in a practical sense. So we didn't want to get caught into the weeds of the language of it's just Hallett's Park.
Like naming it something else, and
Naming
people
it
would
something else,
still
or
continue to call
the
it
debate that you have with people in town, is it Hallett's Pond, is it Hallett's Lake, is it Hallett's Nature Area there? It just was Hallett's. And it was unanimous, and there wasn't even a lot of discussion of other opportunities. Generally, the board felt pretty strongly about this.
Great. I think Brad and Emily both had comments.
I think Emily had her hand up.
I've never really liked the name Hallett or Hallett's either way. I mean, isn't it the name of a construction company?
That's the
Is-
name of the previous
The
owner
previous-
of the area.
So it's not really St. Peter. I mean, that's just how it strikes me. I mean, I wish there was something that we could, be creative about. And I know with the controversy, over lake or pond or whatever, kind of starting from scratch and coming up with something fresh. I'm not opposed to this
Sure.
in general, but I just wanted to throw that out there as something to consider.
Brad?
I actually have to say I really like the simplicity of it. Because exactly what Dustin said is everybody's going to call it Hallett's anyways. And when people are asking people, where is Thompson Dog Park? Well, that's on Swift Street, and where is Johnson Park? Well, okay, it's that little thing. So, but you have to figure out where things are. Hallett's Park is at Hallett's. I think that, I really like the simplicity of the whole process, so.
I guess I would like to continue to make a case that we name it Hallett and drop the apostrophe S, because none of our other parks have names where we're using the possessive or even the plural, which would be another option, but I'd like to just approve it as Hallett Park and drop the S. I'd like to make a case for that, just because it aligns with all of the other names of parks that we have in town. But I do agree with the simplicity of Hallett, because I think that people will call it no matter what. If we decided to name it Happy Bumblebee Park, people would still call it
And that was
Hallett.
the guiding, that was the general consensus, is we can put a lot of time and thought into a different name, but people are gonna call it Hallett. Hallett or Hallett's.
Yeah. Did you have your hand up, Brad?
I was just gonna say, how do you feel about just taking the apostrophe out? And still, because I think people are still gonna call it Hallett's, and because it's Hallett's Pond and stuff, so.
Well, I just don't think we have any of the other parks have, it's like Galt Family, it's not Galt's Park.
Right.
It's Galt, it's Gorman, it's Warren.
I think the reason the Hallett's came about was because everybody called it Hallett's Pond,
Right.
and that kind of stuck with it. But you are correct as far as the possession.
Emily?
Is that something that the Parks Board would like to discuss again, or do they?
Yeah, they go
have a
through their
strong-
step. Yeah, they go through their step, and really that's their recommendation, but the council can certainly do what they feel is appropriate.
Carrie?
I think we'd be keeping within the spirit of their recommendation if we named it Hallett Park. And if folks still call it Hallett's, they can do that. But I agree that we should, for consistency's sake, just drop the apostrophe S.
Is there any further discussion? Then we would be looking, if people are in agreement with the change, with the removal of the apostrophe S, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the resolution renaming the combined Hallett's Nature Area with the new park at 1000 North 3rd Street, with the entire parkland to be designated as Hallett Park. So we'd be looking to approve the resolution as revised, to change it from the
I'll
possessive
make a
Hallett.
motion to approve as revised.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefland,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherrison,
Aye.
Councilmember Ram,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
And thanks to the park board for all their work this year on this. Let's see, we're gonna move on to our next item of business, adoption of a resolution approving a request for city assistance for Market Fest.
Mayor and members, this starts on page 30 within your packet. This is not a new event for the community of St. Peter and for downtown local businesses. It's been in place since 2020. Each year they've modified either the number of dates that are impacted or some location issues. This year is no exception, but from my perspective, there's nothing here that is a significant change from where they've been in the past, other than modification of the dates. Really what you provide is approval to use the right-of-way, the sidewalks for this kind of event, and for placement of what I might term as being intermittent or temporary vendors on the sidewalk. We work to make sure that they're providing for handicap accessibility, so the right distance from buildings to tents. So that's appropriate as well. And we make sure, Pete's team makes sure that what we have called the festoon circuit, but the electricity that's by the trees often is available for the vendors as well. So that's provided. We don't have a meter on each of those electric outlets, so that's provided for them. As a part of this request, as with many requests that are similar to this for a community event or festival, they're required to have the $1.5 million of insurance, and we have a certificate of insurance within hand. I anticipate that the total cost for this is about $500 to provide this for the season. You can see on page 31 the request from Lisa Ide, who is the owner-operator of her Happy Place, and she's been one of the primary organizers since the inception. The resolution is included in your packet if you choose to approve.
Is there any discussion, questions or discussion? Hearing none, the resolution approving city assistance for Market Fest St. Peter is on pages 32 and 33 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeBosse,
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Schuerstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Ring,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Our next item of business, adoption of a resolution approving a request for city assistance for Gustavus alumni event.
So, Mayor, members, this has changed over the last few years as well, but it continues to be in a very similar format and certainly at a similar location. The goal of the alumni office is to have this event in the First National Bank parking lot. They don't need your approval for that. However, they are asking for some assistance from us in a couple of different forms, maybe the biggest of which is providing opportunity for them to connect to an electric transformer if necessary. Last year, they tried to make sure that electricity, enough amperage could be provided through the bank, but that did not work out really well, so they're working on alternatives for that, but are looking to have a hookup in the transformer in the alley, which had been used previously. And so they have to provide a master electrician and approval with the electric department and meet all the safety requirements that are part of that. They need licensing and all that kind of stuff, and so they'll be able to take care of that as appropriate. Since there really isn't anything else, you're not closing off a street for them, doing any of those things. That's the level of assistance that they're looking for and the amount of approval that they need from you. There's some additional information included on page 35 and 36 of your packet, and you'll see the resolution included, I believe, on page 39.
Any questions for Todd or discussion about this item? I usually point out that I work for Gustavus, but I don't work for the alumni office, and so I am not involved in this event at all, but I just like to point that out for transparency. If there's no discussion, the resolution approving city assistance for Gustavus Adolphus College alumni community event is on pages 39 and 40 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeBosse,
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Schuerstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Ring,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Madam Mayor, I should have mentioned we do have an insurance certificate from Gustavus for this as well.
Super. Next item, adoption of a resolution approving a request for city assistance for the American Legion Memorial Day Walk of Honor Parade.
So this is a new event related to the memorial event that occurs at Minnesota Square Park on Memorial Day. So the goal of the Legion is to start, I even hesitate to call it parade, but that's a great term for it. But they're really hoping to provide an opportunity for the color guard and the police department in leading that to provide for an opportunity to form at the Legion and move south on 3rd Street from the American Legion to Minnesota Square Park with the Governors. And so this is something new that they'd like to try. It's an appropriate time. We have the usual considerations for an event of this type, a walk, a parade of this type, and they're required to let folks along the route know that this will be occurring, because for a very short period of time, driveways may be cut off, or the ability to exit your driveway might be cut off. And so they've agreed to that, and I think they'll be able to handle that. We also require a certificate of insurance for this. The police will provide assistance as we're able, but again, this is arguably 2 or 3 units. It's a very small activity, but that doesn't mean it's not without hazard, because they are parading down a traffic area down the street. So we want to make sure that everything's covered appropriately with that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer as best I can, but again, a new part of the memorial event that occurs on Memorial Day at Minnesota Square Park. The resolution's included on page 43.
Questions for Todd? I'm just curious, Todd, because they'll have the parade to Minnesota Square Park, and then there's the event, the Memorial Day event at Minnesota Square, and all the roads will open at that point. They're not doing a parade to the park and then back to the Legion following the event?
That's correct. I mean, I think the folks in the color guard will break up. More than likely, they will have a vehicle or two there to help the color guard get back to the Legion and the flags and those things. That's the plan. They would not be processing on the roadway. If they do walk, they'll come back on sidewalks.
Okay, that sounds good. Any additional questions? Hearing none, the resolution approving city assistance for American Legion Post Number 37 Walk of Honor Parade is on page 43 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rutherford.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston.
Aye.
Councilmember Ring.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Close.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution adopting enterprise fund reserve balance policy that begins with a memo on page 44 of the packet.
Member Sally is here to discuss this. I do want to mention that you've talked about this and staff has talked about this for quite a long time. This is really the fruition of that after you've gone through this last cycle of enterprise fund budgets. You have a similar, you have a policy for your general fund, and this is before specific enterprise funds. So Sally?
Madam Mayor and City Council, as Todd said, we're here tonight to ask for the approval of the Enterprise Fund Reserve Balance Policy for the following funds: water, wastewater, stormwater, environmental services, and electric. The memo begins on page 44 and ends with the resolution on pages 46 and 47. The objective here is to enhance the usefulness of the Enterprise Reserve Fund balances. The Reserve Balance Policy has been developed and provided defined fund balance classifications that are more consistently applied. We have two fund balances. One is a restricted fund, and that balance includes amounts that can only be spent for specific purposes, like debt payments or capital improvements. The other one is the unrestricted balance, and that is the residual of the classification for enterprise funds that includes all spendable amounts, not excluding the amounts in the restricted funds. So there's two of them that we're doing, and we're talking about the unrestricted funds. So we're here tonight for approval of water, wastewater, stormwater, environmental services to set a minimum of 4 months of unrestricted operating expenditures. So for those 4 funds, that's what we're asking for. The electric fund, we're asking for a $2 million unrestricted fund balance, and that's based on, as we've gone out for with credit bureaus on issuing debt and other utilities of similar size. So we're asking for a $2 million unrestricted fund balance there. The fund balance policy incorporates discussions that we've had with the City Council, taking action on setting the reserve targets for the water, wastewater, stormwater, environmental service is important for the following reason. The policy articulates our practices and gives staff a relative to operations of our finances, provides a framework that allows consistent reporting to council and staff, and approval of the policy will not change how we're currently operating. This would be viewed as a new reporting standard and not changing our operations. Just so you're aware, there is no state statute that we have to set this, just like there is no state statute that we have to set enterprise fund budgets. But we come to you to do that just so we give our staff and myself and Todd and you direction of where we're going on those funds. So we're asking you to approve the resolution on page 46 and 47 for the enterprise fund reserve balance policies. Questions?
Yeah.
If I could jump in, Mayor and members, this is a tool, like all tools. It doesn't mean you have to use it every time. It doesn't mean that if you don't meet this number, something bad is going to happen, but it provides an opportunity for you to have a dashboard or a benchmark to work towards or with. And so we believe from that perspective, it's a good thing for you to have in place. As we've talked about with many of your enterprise funds, some of your enterprise funds have a little bit more than this in them. Some of them have, well, dramatically less than this in them. It doesn't mean that you have to get there overnight, but again, it is a tool by which you can use a lens, if you will, for you to look at where you are financially and what you may feel is appropriate related to cash flow, impact on rates, and impact on budgets. So from that perspective, we think it's a really worthwhile tool. Again, it's not something that makes you have to be at a certain spot right away, but again, an important opportunity for you to have a dashboard of where you are financially, more so from a comparison from year to year than it is from a perspective of a standard overall.
Thanks. Any questions or discussion? Brad?
So number one, I am in favor of setting targets here. I do have a little concern just with the phrasing of, on the bottom of page 46, the second to last line. The purpose of the fund balance policy is to establish minimum unrestricted fund balances as follows. My concern is with the way that's phrased, it looks like we're putting in a required minimum in there versus what we're setting here as a target. And I would prefer to just see it as the purpose of the fund balance policy is to establish minimum unrestricted fund balance targets as follows. Just so that it's a little more clear that next year we don't need to meet this form. We want to meet it. Some of our funds are over, some of ours aren't.
Mhm.
Just so that the ones that are under, people aren't expecting that we're not meeting, or an auditor comes in and says, why aren't you meeting your minimum fund balances? That's my only thought on that process would be.
If I could, Madam Mayor, I think I understand what you're looking for. Brad, might I suggest something with a little bit different wording, that we just change minimum to targeted?
Okay, actually, yeah, that would be a good way to, yes, that would.
And from a staff perspective, we would not be against that. It's not our goal to say you gotta be at this point. Again, this is a tool
Yep.
for you to use as a comparison in your financial health.
And it's great to have a target.
Yeah.
And that absolutely, and to strive to go that direction, so.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, the resolution adopting enterprise and fund reserve balance policy with that one amendment is printed on pages 46 and 47 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve the resolution as amended?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Rutherford.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
Sally. Thank you.
As a reminder, when we approved the agenda, we removed item number F, and so we are going to move on to adoption of a resolution approving execution of solar agreement with Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency, and Pete is here to talk to us about that.
Madam Mayor and City Council, SIMPA developed a solar buyback program a couple of years ago that would allow roughly 2 megawatts of power to be divided amongst the communities that are members of SIMPA. The idea would be to allow renewable energy to be installed at member cities. And part of the process would be is that since we're an all-in member, meaning that we have to purchase all of our power from SIMPA, we would enter into an agreement for them to supply that unit, supply that electricity to us, and then work out a contract so that we could keep our existing contract in place. Through much of last year, we've had discussions. Laws have changed. A couple of our council members have been a part of discussions out there related to this. But we feel we're very close to obtaining a contract or an agreement with SIMPA in order to have this project developed. The project would cost roughly $180,000. SIMPA would front the money for that and supply the capital for that investment. SIMPA would then receive the tax credits. We anticipate that to be about $50,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. And SIMPA would retain the renewable energy credits, or the RECs, and that is a tax credit or a credit you get for every megawatt of power that you produce. And that's very handy for SIMPA because they use that to offset member needs when a community wants to buy some RECs or use RECs with some major customers like we have in the past with Gustavus. RECs can be purchased from SIMPA and they would use that to offset some of their cost and sustainability goals. The city would be responsible for making payments to SIMPA on an annual basis, and that would include the principal and interest and any maintenance costs that incur. So the first few years, you're probably not going to see too much expense come out of that because everything's new, everything runs. But inverters will need to be replaced and the system will need to be maintained over a period of time. We also will be putting some money away in our budget process to prepare for this maintenance issue or issues that do arise. And all of the upfront costs are going to be amortized over a 20-year window. At the end of the 20-year cycle or the agreement we enter into, the city can purchase the solar system for $1,000, which at that time, regardless of how long it lasts, we'd still be responsible for demolition or removal, or if we wanted to do upgrades, we could replace the panels, hopefully with the racks that are in place. The overall goal behind renewable energy for the community here is to meet a couple of things. One is the sustainability goals that we have set and discussed about going forward. And two would be to have localized renewable energy that we can participate in. We do have a 4 megawatt system right now at the compost site. This 76 kW site would be at the wastewater facility. That would bring it to 80. And if you do the math, we'd have about 50 kW left to work on, and we'll consider some other sites and bring back to you a project in the near future or down the road once we get this constructed. There's a resolution on page 58 that would basically allow us to enter into an agreement with SIMPA. My recommendation is the mayor and the city administrator, once we get a process defined. I think we're really close. Our attorney has taken a look at the tentative agreement. It just isn't finalized as of yet, but basically all of the ingredients are there to help the city be successful.
Thanks very much. Any questions for Pete? Carrie?
What are the next steps for the council if this piece is approved?
If this is approved, we will develop the agreement. The mayor and the city administrator will sign and construction will begin.
So there's really no action beyond tonight that the council needs to take?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, then we'll have the wheels in motion.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Brad?
Has Solar Connection given an idea of a timeline as to when they could get started?
They haven't yet. Joe Hoffman from SIMPA has been talking to them. If we do get the order in May, their goal would be to get it done this year yet.
Okay, that would be the expectation.
Yes.
I would expect that they would be able to get it in.
Right.
If not, then we would, then I would look, we would want to look at another provider who could do it. I think this is a good opportunity. Right, basically having SIMPA finance it, they're doing essentially their amortization is straight line over 20 years. My expectation is this is something that we're going to be using for 30 years. Even though they always project over 20 years, the warranties on the panels are 25 years. So, so I'm really happy to see this finally moving forward, and we'll be excited when the construction starts. So.
Any further questions or discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
Pete, I do have the image up. We just want to make people aware. So there's a blue long rectangle there in what would be south of the service road there, what we call Joe Roulette Drive.
Right.
Right, by the wastewater treatment plant.
Yep.
And so that's the
Pfeiffer Road.
location that is contemplated and the approximate size, just so that you
Yep.
know where this is going to go. Is that right, Pete?
Yeah, the actual formation may vary a little bit in there between the old blue building down to the south there and north. They'll come in and look at it from a study point of view to see where they get the best
It
penetration.
could be 2 rows or
Yeah,
something like that, but this
right.
is generally where it's going to be located.
But it'll be south of the road,
Joe Roulette Drive.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you don't know why we're all giggling, Google that name. Emily?
Pete, I know I asked you about this a while back, but will you be able to do any work with native plantings in tandem with the solar field? I know that's a really common thing these days.
Yeah, we're looking at planting areas underneath it. We haven't laid that out yet or who would be responsible for that, but that would be the goal.
Awesome.
We also want to tie in the trail system with the dog park and some other things, so we got to see how we can get that all to lay out yet.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Pete or Todd before we move on?
I
Yeah,
got a
go ahead.
question. You guys have been talking about this and working on this a long time, so this is a big leap forward. You should feel good about that. That's a big leap forward.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah, Brad?
Well, I've made the comment before, because some people will say that the solar array doesn't make a difference when it comes to climate change or dealing with the issue. And my response to that always is, yes, the solar array doesn't make a difference. The one on my house doesn't make a difference. Even what you have on Cleveland doesn't make a difference. But all of these individual decisions, when aggregated together, make a huge impact. Even just looking at what's going on in St. Peter, the number of homes that are starting to get it. With this, along with the school district, looking at adding 2 40 kilowatt arrays, it's the aggregate of all of these individual decisions being made that truly make a difference. So, and without these individual decisions, we wouldn't be where we are.
On that note, the resolution authorizing execution of solar agreement with Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency is on page 58 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ray,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Schuster.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Pete.
Pete.
Let's see. Next up, adoption of a resolution approving solid waste hauler permit.
Mayor and members, this is for West Central Sanitation. As you know, they have not hauled in St. Peter before, but they were selected as your future vendor based on the bid process that you undertook just a little while back, a cycle or two back. And so they are required to have a permit for that, and this is approval of that permit. Again, since they're new and it's not a renewal, it has a separate agenda item. Renewals go under consent agenda, and new licenses come under separate action item under new business.
All right. Questions for Todd about this one? Hearing none, the resolution approving solid waste hauler permit application is on page 60 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Schuster,
Aye.
Councilmember Ray.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. That was our last item of new business tonight, and we will move on to reports. Under my report, I have a proclamation for Police Officer Memorial Day and Police Officer Memorial Week. Whereas our nation's public safety officers are heroes who risk their lives to keep our families and communities safe. And whereas law enforcement personnel are dedicated to the communities they serve. And whereas police officers put their lives on the line to protect ours, sometimes making the ultimate sacrifice. And whereas May 15th has been designated Police Officers Memorial Day. And whereas the St. Peter community honors and respects the sacrifices made by our police officers and wishes to extend gratitude to each member of the law enforcement community. Now, therefore, I, Shannon A. Noel, Mayor of the City of St. Peter, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim May 15th, 2023 as Police Officer Memorial Day and May 15th through 21st, 2023 as Police Officer Memorial Week, and do hereby extend the gratitude of the St. Peter community to the officers of the St. Peter Police Department for their dedication to our community and their commitment to protecting those they serve. Thanks very much. That's the only item I have tonight. So we'll move on to reports from council members. Are there any reports from any members of the city council? Hearing none, we will move on to reports from the city administrator.
Mayor members, I have two that are listed and one that I'd like to follow up on, but the first one I'd like to ask Pete to come forward. As you know, we just had curbside brush collection, and we've been talking about green recycling and brown recycling, and so this is a part of brown recycling. And so I wanted to give you some data surrounding this. So Pete, if you wouldn't mind.
You bet. We started last week on Monday, and we finished by the end of the day on Wednesday. 3 long days of brush collection. We did end up with about 400 cubic yards of brown recycling material, mostly brush. And the volume is up this year compared to previous years. There's a little more damage through the year. Of course, we had some trees that were taken down, so people were doing a great job of cleaning up. We also had about 100 hours of staff time cleaning up for those 3 days, but went very well. So if anybody else has put stuff out on the curb, please know that we won't be back by now. We've completed that as of last week, but the compost site is open, and you can drop stuff off there.
Thanks, Pete. I'm not surprised. I saw so many piles of brush out there. It
Yep.
looked to me like people took advantage of that beautiful Saturday we had to get some yard work done and put it out for the city to pick up. So thanks to
Yep.
All the crews doing the
Yep,
hard
Our
work.
forester did a tremendous job out there. He always does.
Wonderful. Thanks, Pete.
The next one that I have, Pete, please don't leave. Sorry, Pete. I just wanted to mention, we do have a report about Highway 169, 99, and 22 project update with the detour starting just recently, and I just wanted Pete to be up here so that we could both nod. We have had people that have called us and are very concerned about traffic changes and detours, and we really get it, and we really appreciate people's patience and certainly following the detours appropriately and being safe through those areas where construction is ongoing. I hate to say it this way, but it's going to be this way for a little while, and there'll be changes within the detours and when construction is occurring and where construction is occurring. So please hang in there. We appreciate your patience. This will be an improved area and intersection for sure when it is completed. So we appreciate people's patience, but it is true.
Right.
We've had calls, no doubt about it. We get it. We get it. We drive through there. We know.
Quite a few calls, in fact, and as you know, we're doing this in phases, so one side is being replaced or corrected, and then the other side will be completed. The other side will be a little longer, so this is gonna be the short detour setup. Once they switch over to the side that has been corrected, we will be putting water and sewer in on that side, and it probably will be after June 15th, somewhere in that neighborhood we anticipate. We'll see how it goes, and we'll keep updating you if we know more about where that's gonna go, but there'll be some major water and sewer improvements on that west side down there.
And is it correct that at no time will that section of road be closed entirely? There'll always be a single?
That is our goal.
Okay, I've had questions about that.
Yeah.
People wondering, is it gonna close at some point? The goal is to always have
Something open.
something open.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, thanks folks for your patience. We appreciate it, and it'll make an improvement. My third item?
Yes.
I did want to mention that St. Peter Utilities has been honored with the National Award for Outstanding Safety Practices. And so this relates to Pete and his team, and certainly the superintendents and the safety committee, and Anthony Lenz, who's our MMUA person. It also relates to what you folks all do. You give us some time and some resources to hire MMUA to help shepherd us and help do some of the training and do some of those things that promote safety and provide the opportunity to be recognized with an award like this. There were 283 utilities from across the country that were entered in the safety awards, and we were one of the ones that was selected for this. And it really shows a top to bottom emphasis and understanding of the importance of safety for your employees. And so we appreciate that as employees. We appreciate that. So I wanted to congratulate Pete and all of you and the team out at Public Works for providing for this. It's a nice thing to
It's
have.
exciting.
For the size of our community, Todd,
It's a big
we
deal.
got a report that showed that we were in the top 16.
Yeah,
Wow.
amazing. So anyway, thanks to all,
Yep.
and let's keep that up. Yeah.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
Pete and team.
That's really speaks highly of the crew and how safe they work.
Yeah.
Safety committees, that makes a difference in this. Yep. Madam Mayor, that's the last report that I have, but I do have one last item for you. That's a request for a resolution calling for a closed session under Minnesota statute 13D.05 to discuss attorney-client privilege. This relates to potential real estate transactions in Traverse Green subdivision. And so if you approve the resolution, we'd go to traverse the Sioux room, and the only reason we'd come back into open session, I don't have any planned action other than adjournment.
So we won't be coming back to this room because we don't have any other, and there won't be any action.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Is there any questions for Todd? The resolution calling for a closed session is printed on page 61 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstra.
Aye.
Councilmember Ram.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. It's 7:50 PM. We will move down to the Traverse de Sioux meeting for our closed session. Traverse de Sioux room for our closed session. See, once in a while, I remember to get that time in there.